It started with a phone call. No static, no fear in the voice. Just quiet certainty. A man from Iowa, retired truck driver, always polite, called into the station and said, "I saw God." Not metaphorically, not in a dream. He meant literally. He said it like someone reporting the weather. No trembling, no drama, just fact. "She stood in the field behind my house this morning," he said. No shadow, no sound. She smiled at me, said nothing. Then she vanished. I asked him what she looked like. He said she looked like his wife, the one who died 3 years ago. I didn't know what to make of it. Grief does strange things. I've been broadcasting from this old mountaintop station long enough to hear just about every kind of delusion, and usually I can tell when someone's fraying at the edges. But his voice was too steady, too real. That was the first call. Then came the others. Within an hour, I had 17 voicemails. One from a teacher in Brazil, one from a farmhand outside Nairobi, a man from Tokyo who left nothing but a recording of himself sobbing. Each one described the same thing, a figure, an encounter, a moment they couldn't explain. They all said the same word, God, and every single one of them described something different. A woman in Germany said she saw a wolf standing upright, wrapped in fire, whispering a lullaby. A boy in Canada claimed a massive, silent sphere hovered over his house, pulsing with light that made his bones feel warm. A priest in New Mexico said he saw a door open in the sky, and inside was a hallway of mirrors, each one showing a different version of himself, and one of those versions spoke his name backward. It was like everyone had seen something impossible, but not shared. There was no consensus, no central vision, just one unifying detail. They knew. They didn't believe. They didn't guess. They didn't wonder. Every caller, every witness spoke with total conviction. I saw God, not a God, not something like God, God. And that's when it hit me. Not the fear, not yet, the strangeness. Because people don't agree on anything, do they? Especially not on the divine. And now, somehow, people across the globe, all at once were absolutely sure of something, and yet none of their descriptions matched. They weren't arguing. They weren't confused. They were just certain, each in their own private truth. I opened up the lines, kept the signal strong, asked for more. They poured in, dozens, then hundreds. I spent the entire night listening, writing, recording. A teenager from Mumbai said he saw a spiral of glass rising from the ocean, and a voice told him his ancestors forgave him. An old woman in Alaska swore a tree in her backyard split open and a face emerged, her own face, younger, smiling with unfamiliar peace. All of them saw it at the same time. All of them said it was God, and none of them described the same thing twice. I kept waiting for panic, for the news to catch up, but it didn't, not in the usual way. Some countries issued alerts. Others denied anything happened. Most just went quiet, as if the whole planet had collectively decided not to acknowledge the thing happening in plain sight. But the calls kept coming, and each time I answered, each time I asked what they saw, the answer would come softly, clearly, without doubt. It was God, and now I can't sleep, because I don't know if this is mass delusion or mass awakening. I don't know if something is manipulating us, showing us what we want to see, or if we're simply not capable of comprehending the same thing the same way. Maybe God doesn't have one form. Maybe God is whatever we most expect, or fear, or maybe something older, something deeper, just arrived, and it wears our minds like masks. I don't know, but the signal is clear tonight, and I'm staying on the air. If you've seen it, whatever it is, call me. I'll be here, listening. By the second day, it had spread past the calls. I was still taking them, still logging every account I could. The station's old hard drives are full, backed up on cassette, believe it or not. I've started writing things down by hand just to keep up. But now it's not just voices. People are sending drawings, photos, paintings, little statues carved from bone and wood and plastic. One man emailed a scan of a napkin he sketched on while crying in a diner. Just 3 shapes, a wheel, an eye, and a burning hand. None of them match. None. And yet, the conviction behind them is terrifying. Everyone believes what they saw is true, that their vision is the correct one. Not symbol, Not metaphor, not religious commentary. Truth. I pinned the sketches to the walls of the station. They're everywhere now. You'd think the variety would be comforting. Diversity of vision, right? The beauty of subjective experience? It isn't, because the more I stare at them, the more they start to overlap. Not in form, but in rhythm. The symmetry of chaos. The way something too big to grasp might show up differently in different minds, like reflections on cracked glass. I started organizing the reports into categories. I don't know why. Maybe the scientist in me, left over from when I used to catalog weather patterns and seismic activity before the world decided to get strange. Here's what I've got. Type A, beings of light. Glowing, warm, peaceful. Usually human-shaped. Often speak in music. These are the comforting ones. Type B, abstract. Shapes, orbs, colors without names. Pure geometry. No voices, just vibrations. People who saw these often stopped speaking for hours afterward. Type C, familiar faces. Deceased loved ones. Childhood pets. Figures from old memories, now bathed in impossible light. Type D, distorted mirrors. Versions of a self, older, younger, burned, beautiful, bleeding, but always recognizable. People who saw these are often unsettled. One woman said, "It looked like me, but it smiled before I did." Type E, unknowable. These are rare. People who claim they saw something they couldn't describe. They try, but the words fall apart. One man just said, "It had no shape, but it bent everything around it." That last one, that's the one I keep thinking about. Because isn't that what we'd expect? If something truly divine or other or real arrived, wouldn't it shatter our categories? Wouldn't it break our language first? I keep wondering, are these beings choosing how to appear, or are we shaping them? Are we filtering something unfathomable through belief, fear, and desire, turning it into something we can understand? And if that's the case, what's really there behind the mask? I got a call from a pastor this morning. Soft voice, kind man. He said, "I waited my whole life for the second coming. And when it happened, it wasn't him." I asked him what he meant. He said, "It came in silence. It didn't speak my name. It didn't even look at me. But it knew I expected something else." Then he hung up. That's the part that haunts me. The knowing. These beings, they don't guess what you want to see. They already know. They arrive with it ready, tailored, shaped perfectly to your mind. And that means they aren't just watching. They're inside. I keep asking myself, what happens when someone sees a version of God they don't want? And worse, what happens when people start deciding theirs is the only right one? Because that's coming. I can feel it in the tone of the calls. The tension beneath the wonder. People are starting to compare. And when belief meets contradiction, it doesn't tend to go quietly. So if you've seen something, if it called itself God, or didn't need to, you're not alone. But maybe the real question isn't what it looked like. Maybe it's what it didn't. They're starting to crack. The governments, I don't know what I expected. Maybe some kind of coordinated response, global summits, emergency broadcasts, top-level scientists trying to piece together the phenomenon. I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd put the politics aside long enough to acknowledge the fact that something enormous is happening, and none of our maps mean anything anymore. But that's not what's happening. Instead, it's splintering. Every country, every region, every block is treating what's happening as if it only belongs to them. Like the vision of God that appeared in their sky, in their street, in their soul, is the only true one. And the rest? Dangerous, corrupt, false prophets. The United States is issuing updates through the Department of Homeland Faith. That's not a joke. That's a real name. They're urging people to avoid unauthorized interpretations, whatever that means. Meanwhile, Russia's turned off most of their external media. No explanation, but a leaked transmission suggests they've declared their version of the entity as the returning architect. That's the phrase, returning architect. Worship is mandatory in at least 3 regions now. In France, there are parades, literal parades. Golden statues of a smiling child surrounded by rings of birds. People throwing rose petals. It would be beautiful if it weren't also terrifying. And in Yemen, it's smoke. Whole towns burned in a single night after 2 separate factions claimed the appearance in the sky had different features. A war that started over an interpretation of a vision no one could verify. I got a call from a journalist embedded in a border town between two of the larger religious zones. She didn't give her name, just said, "The soldiers here aren't trying to hold the line. They're listening for the voice." When I asked what she meant, she said, "They think God's going to speak again. And whichever side hears it first wins." Then the line went dead. There's a stillness to the air now. Have you felt it? Like the world is waiting for something else. Not fear, not peace, just tension. Like a breath being held. The worst part? People are starting to see new versions. I've been getting repeat callers, people who claimed they saw the divine once, and now they're seeing something else. Something subtly different. One man said his God had wings the first time. The second time? None. Just eyes. Another described a tall figure made of mirrors, until yesterday, when it returned and the mirrors were cracked. Same presence. Same voice. Different form. Are they changing? Or are we? Is belief reshaping them? Are we watching the divine become unstable, fractured by human perception? Or maybe the idea of God was never stable to begin with. Maybe what we're seeing now isn't a visitation. Maybe it's a reflection. And if every government, every faction, every individual starts insisting their reflection is the only real one, well, we don't need a divine apocalypse for that to go wrong. We'll do the rest ourselves. So be careful what you believe right now. Not because belief is wrong, but because it might work. And if it does, it might not stop at just what you want to see. I got a letter this morning. A real one. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name in neat, looping cursive I didn't recognize on an envelope that smelled like old parchment and ozone. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Smooth. Heavy. And on it, words I couldn't read. Not in any language I know, and I know a few. At first, I thought it was just a code, or maybe one of those angelic scripts people copy from books or movies. Decorative. Stylized. But this had structure. Grammar. The letters flowed, curved into one another, like musical notation and geometric precision had a child. There was rhythm. Syntax. It was alive. The weirdest part? I understood it. Not word for word. Not in the way you understand a menu or a headline, but in my chest, in the soft muscle under the ribs. I looked at those symbols and I felt what they were saying. Not a message exactly, more like a question or a test. I didn't sleep last night, not really. I've had callers reporting similar experiences, waking up with symbols drawn in ash across their walls. Notes left by children in languages they've never spoken. One man said his 6-year-old daughter whispered a phrase in her sleep that made him forget his own name for 30 seconds. He said it didn't scare him. He said it made him feel like he'd been waiting his whole life to forget that name. A linguist from Oslo sent me a voice memo last night. Said she'd isolated fragments of the divine speech, as she called it, from audio collected in different religious zones. When layered on top of each other, they formed a pattern, a frequency embedded inside the cadence. Not a voice, a structure, and it's always the same, no matter the country, no matter the form people see. Behind the descriptions, behind the faces and lights and visions, there's a shared resonance, something beneath the spectacle, a code, the language that isn't. That's what I've started calling it, because it doesn't fit any known linguistic framework. It doesn't rely on phonetics or culture or even logic. It's more like a transmission meant to bypass understanding entirely, straight into the root of you. And that scares me, because if it's consistent, if it's deliberate, that means these beings, whatever they are, aren't fragmented. They're just appearing that way. Beneath the differences, beneath the contradictions, they're speaking with one voice. One message, split into thousands of shapes so we don't choke on the truth all at once. I asked a caller this morning what his vision said. He hesitated, then told me the word he heard. Just one. It doesn't translate. Not into anything clean. He said it meant something like unfolding, but also return, and also mirroring. He said when the being said it, when he heard it in his bones, he suddenly remembered a prayer he didn't know he'd been saying his whole life. I asked him if it felt holy. He said no, it felt inevitable. I've been looking at that letter all day. It's still here on the desk beside me. I can't read it, not fully. But every time I glance at it, I feel something move behind my thoughts. A shape not quite formed, a meaning I'm almost ready to hold. And maybe that's what it's doing to all of us, preparing us, rewriting our minds in quiet, gentle loops. So when the voice speaks again, there'll be no confusion, no hesitation, just recognition. So if you see symbols in your dreams or hear a language in your bones, don't try to fight it. Just ask yourself who taught you to understand it. Because the answer might not be human, and it might not have been recent. Something changed today. It wasn't a broadcast or a call or a report. It wasn't even a sound. It was the silence that did it. The kind that drops suddenly, like the entire world stops breathing for a second too long. I was outside, just checking the generator. The sky was clear. No clouds, no birds, no wind. And in the middle of that stillness, I looked up, not out of curiosity, just reflex. And there it was. Not a form, not a person, not something I could describe in pieces. It was a presence, held against the sky like a bruise under glass. My eyes couldn't focus on it. Every time I tried, it shifted. 1 second, it looked like a towering silhouette. The next, it was barely the rim, just a ripple in the blue. I blinked, and it was gone, but it left something behind. In me, I came back inside and turned on the mic, and for a few minutes I couldn't remember how to speak. Not just the words, the idea of speaking. I stared at the buttons, the lights, the cables like they were parts of a machine I'd never seen before. Like I was just now realizing what my voice actually does and how it pushes something invisible into other people's ears and thoughts. And that's when I realized I'm not the only one. The calls today have been different. A man in Chile said his wife went completely still after seeing what she thought was God on the beach. Just froze there, eyes wide, body rigid. Stood like that for over an hour. Then she smiled, said, "I'm still here, but the part that saw it isn't," and walked into the ocean. Another caller whispered, like she was afraid someone else might hear her. Said her church filled with light during service. Not warm, not golden, just white, too white, like all color had been stripped out of reality. She said she looked at the crucifix and it had changed. It was still a cross, but something about it was reversed, inverted, like it was facing a direction she couldn't physically describe. And people aren't just seeing things now. They're changing. One man said he hasn't been able to see faces since his vision. Everyone looks the same to him now, just a blur of features, like the idea of a person but without definition. He says he can still recognize people, but only by what they feel like. I had a caller scream on air yesterday. Not a word, just raw, animal terror. When I tried to talk to him, he sobbed and said, "It wasn't wrong. It just wasn't mine." That's the phrase that keeps ringing in my head. It wasn't mine. Because what if that's what's happening now? What if this isn't a unifying event, not a global vision, not one God returning to all people, but something else entirely? Something vast enough to meet each of us halfway, to tailor itself to our expectations, our fears, our limits. What if we're not seeing God at all? What if we're seeing reflections of ourselves, amplified, twisted, dressed in divinity so we can survive the contact? And what happens when someone sees the version of God they weren't meant to, the one they don't recognize, the one they can't accept? That's the inversion. It's not about light or dark, not about good or evil. It's about recognition. And when that fails, when a mirror cracks instead of reveals, what's left is something we can't describe without losing something of ourselves in the process. So if you feel it, if you sense it standing nearby, watching, waiting, ask yourself, are you seeing it? Or is it seeing the version of you that still makes sense in its world? And if not, what version is it making for you now? I didn't notice it at first. I thought it was feedback, some leftover hum from the old backup generator, maybe interference bleeding in from the emergency relay towers out west. The usual stuff. It's an old station. Static is like furniture here. But this wasn't static. It was a tone. Low, constant, just barely there. Like the world had added a note to its background music. One long, slow breath vibrating just beneath everything. I only caught it because I was editing yesterday's recording, slowing it down, cleaning it up, and there it was. A hum under my voice. Not natural, not electrical, too steady for that. I ran it through filters, tried isolating the frequency. What I found wasn't noise. It was organized. There was a pattern in it, rhythmic, like a heartbeat stretched into sound. It wasn't loud, but it was everywhere, threaded through every caller's voice, embedded in the silence between words. Even the dead air had it. And then it changed. Last night, around 2:44 a.m., the pulse shifted, just slightly. It dropped half a note, barely noticeable, unless you were already listening for it. But I was. And after it changed, I got my first email from someone who claimed they heard it too, without a radio. A nurse from Ontario said she walked into the ICU and froze because everyone in the room, patients, staff, even the unconscious had gone quiet. Completely. She said you could feel the stillness. And underneath it, that same hum, deep, vibrating in her bones, like her own body was being used to carry the signal. She said no one else mentioned it. But afterward, two of the patients, both previously catatonic, spoke the same sentence. "We're being tuned." I've heard that phrase now in 3 other calls. Unprompted, I got a voicemail from a college kid in Istanbul who swears the streetlights in his neighborhood now blink in time with a hum. He says it feels like everything's syncing up, like the whole world is being brought into rhythm with something bigger. A professor in Prague emailed an audio file. I played it twice, once at normal speed, then again slowed to 20%. It's nothing at first, just ambient street noise. Then the tone kicks in. It lines up perfectly with EEG brainwave patterns from deep trance states. That same hum. It's not just background noise anymore. It's a carrier. That's the term that keeps coming to me. Like it's not the message itself, but the thing the message rides on. And here's where it gets worse. This afternoon, I recorded myself. Just to check. I've been feeling strange, detached, like my thoughts were arriving pre-written. I played the recording back, and for a moment, in the quiet between my sentences, I heard my voice say something I never said. Not an echo, not edited in. My voice, saying a phrase I didn't recognize. Signal integrity confirmed. That's not something I would ever say. But the tone, the cadence, it was me. I checked the waveform. It's real. It was in the recording. My frequency. My voice print. So now I'm wondering what's speaking through me. Or maybe more importantly, who else is being used to broadcast? I think the signal's getting stronger. Not louder, just clearer. Cleaner. Like the static is being scraped away. Like whatever's been hiding in the hum is about to speak directly. And when it does, I don't think it'll need a microphone. So if you hear the tone, if your radio hums a little too perfectly, or your appliances vibrate when they shouldn't, or your own voice starts to sound just slightly off, you're not broken. You're being calibrated. There's a light over Cincinnati. Bright, vertical, like someone cracked the sky open and poured molten silver down through the atmosphere. I watched a live feed this morning, grainy, shaky, probably shot on a phone, but it was clear. A column of brilliance just hanging there, not flickering, not moving, steady, like a pin pressed through the ceiling of the world. People gathered underneath it, thousands of them. Some are kneeling, some are singing. A few are just standing there, arms wide, staring into the light until their faces go slack. The video cuts out every few seconds, interference, maybe, but when it comes back, it's always the same. The light, the silence, the crowd growing. They're calling it heaven. That's the word the local broadcasters are using now. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, like a location, a place. Heaven, now over the Midwest in high definition. But that's just one version. Because yesterday, in Mongolia, a black storm formed over the steppes. Deep, pulsing clouds that never rained. And inside that storm, barely visible between lightning flashes, was something huge. Winged, or maybe rooted. The descriptions vary, but the people there, they're calling that heaven too. They've started building camps beneath it. Pilgrimages have begun, not for shelter, for closeness. They say being near it makes you feel different, like your skin starts humming in tune with the sky. Now we got at least 4 different heavens reported worldwide. One's light, one's storm, one's total silence, recorded off the coast of Norway, where the sea stopped making sound entirely for 24 hours. People stood on the cliffs and wept, not because they were sad, but because they couldn't hear the waves anymore. And all of them claim theirs is the real one. The governments are panicking quietly now. You can hear it in the way they speak, measured, empty, like they're trying to prevent a riot without saying why. They keep calling these zones of anomalous atmospheric reflection. But the people on the ground know better. They're organizing, traveling, flocking. Each heaven has its own crowd, its own language, its own rituals forming like barnacles on a new hull. And every one of them insists that their heaven is the true arrival. They have the proof that God, or whatever's behind this, is on their side, not the others. They're not attacking each other. Not yet, but they will. You can feel it in the calls. The tension, the pride. I got a call from a man in one of the zones, wouldn't say which, who told me that the light whispers in our bones. That was his exact phrase. He said every night they gather beneath it, and the children speak in unison without prompting. They speak a name. It's not in any language he knows, but when he hears it, he forgets why he was afraid. I asked him if he's coming back. He said, "I don't need to." Then he hung up. I think what's happening now isn't just revelation. It's segmentation. Each vision, each version, each localized heaven is a branch like different arms of a tree growing faster than we can follow. Maybe this isn't one God returning. Maybe this is many. Maybe this is belief itself splitting open, fracturing into pieces we can't reconcile. Or maybe it's just one thing too big to see all at once, so our minds are carving it into sections just to survive. Whatever it is, it's not waiting for us to agree. It's here, it's present, and it's moving forward. So wherever you are, if your sky starts to bend, or your streets start humming, or your neighbors start speaking in the same voice, ask yourself, is this a visitation, or is it a sorting? And which heaven will you belong to when it finally makes up its mind? It started with architecture. Not new buildings, old ones changing. Slowly, subtly. A caller from Cairo was the first to notice. She said the street outside her apartment had doubled. At first, I thought she meant expanded like construction. But no, she meant mirrored. She walked out one morning and saw the buildings on the west side reflected perfectly on the east, down to the cracks in the paint, the laundry on the balconies, even the cats sleeping on the stairs. But there weren't two of everything. There was just one version extended through itself. A symmetry that hadn't been there before. Then it spread. Reports started pouring in from Seoul, Buenos Aires, Nairobi. Cities where the alleys turned in loops, where roads met themselves in perfect angles. Not man-made, not designed. The angles are too precise. The kind of geometry that doesn't make sense unless you're building for something that sees in more dimensions than we do. One man called from Prague, said he left his apartment and found himself walking past his building again, just 3 blocks away. Same window, same curtain, same water spot on the mailbox. He said he opened the door, and inside, everything was reversed, like the room had been flipped left to right, even the photos on the walls. Except for one detail, his reflection in the mirror was not flipped. It stared straight at him and smiled. I got an email this morning from someone in Vancouver. Attached was a blurry phone video. Just a street, normal at first. Then, slowly, a shimmer runs down the block like heat waves on pavement. And after it passes, the buildings shift. Just a little, like they've clicked into a new alignment. The light changes. The angles adjust. The city doesn't look rebuilt. It looks rewritten. And it's not just structures. People are reporting doppelgangers. Not clones. Not twins. Just others. Versions. A woman said she saw herself walking her dog from the opposite direction. Same clothes, same gait, but when she looked closely, the dog was different. Bigger. Older. She said the other her looked surprised to see her. I keep thinking about reflections. How they've shown up again and again since this started. First in mirrors, then in water, now in the world itself. Like reality is trying to match some unseen pattern, aligning itself with something we're not fully supposed to understand. Maybe these mirror cities aren't accidents. Maybe they're prototypes, templates, drafts of a reality being shaped in real time. Or maybe they're warnings. Because if the world is starting to mirror itself, it begs the question, what is it reflecting? Not us. Not really. Not entirely. I think what we're seeing is a convergence. like layers of possibility overlapping, different versions of streets, people, choices, collapsing in on each other until only the strongest pattern remains. And I don't know who decides what stays. I keep expecting my own station to shift, the dials to reverse, the clock to tick backward. Sometimes I hear my own voice on delay, not as an echo, but ahead of what I'm saying. Like another version of me already finished the sentence, and I'm just catching up. So if your city starts to change, if your neighborhood folds in ways that don't match your memory, don't assume you're hallucinating. It might just be the world recalibrating itself around a truth we haven't yet earned the language to hold. And if you see yourself walking the other way, don't follow, because whatever they've seen, they may be walking out. There's a new tone in the calls now. It's quieter, not frantic, not panicked, just hollow. People are still reporting sightings, still describing their own versions of whatever God has returned, but something's shifted in their voices. Doubt. Not doubt in what they saw. No, they're still sure. Unshakably. But now they're noticing something else. That the people around them, the people they love, are beginning to act different. I got a call from a man in Colorado. Said his wife hasn't spoken since her vision. Not a word. She eats, sleeps, breathes like normal. But she doesn't talk. She just smiles. All the time. Stares at him with this patient, gentle expression. Like she's waiting for him to realize something. He asked her once what she saw. She didn't answer. Just touched his face and mouthed the words, "It's okay now." He said he hasn't been able to sleep since. Then there's the woman from Maine. Her sister had what she called a divine seizure. Woke up completely unharmed. Different. Not possessed, not robotic, just remote. As if she were watching everything happen from somewhere else. She started writing these short sentences on scraps of paper, always in the same looping hand. I belong to the original. She doesn't explain what that means. Just hands them out to people one by one. I've heard dozens of versions of that now. The language changes, but the theme's always the same. Submission. Acceptance. Like something cracked open inside them when they saw whatever they saw, and now they've stopped asking questions. And here's the terrifying part. They seem happier. Like genuinely, frighteningly at peace. Which wouldn't be so bad, except it's starting to create a divide. A split between those who had the vision and those who didn't. The ones who didn't well, they're starting to feel left behind. They're angry, suspicious, afraid. Some think the others are lying. Some think they've been brainwashed. Some think they've been replaced. One caller, a high school teacher, told me she caught her husband staring at her for hours one night. Just watching her sleep. She pretended not to notice. In the morning, he said, "You're not the version I was shown." Then he made coffee like nothing happened. The fractures are growing. Belief doesn't bind people together. Not really. Not when the beliefs are incompatible. What we're seeing now isn't a mass awakening. It's a splintering. Faith no longer sits at the center. It spreads in every direction, endlessly specific. Everyone has their own truth now, and some of them are starting to enforce it. I've seen the reports. Groups forming. Not militias yet, but cults, communes, enclaves. Each one devoted to a particular image of the divine. Each one utterly convinced theirs is the real return. And each one slowly pulling away from the world. And the ones who can't find their God, they're starting to lose themselves. I've had more calls this week from people on the edge than I can handle. People crying. People begging to know why they haven't seen anything. What does it mean? What did they do wrong? One woman said, "I keep asking for a sign, but all I get are echoes." It's not a question of faith anymore. It's a question of eligibility. Whatever intelligence or presence is out there isn't answering everyone. Not yet, at least. Maybe never. So be careful wherever you are. Not just of the sky, or the voices, or the light. Be careful of the people closest to you. Because they might have already decided what you're meant to see. And if you don't, they might stop seeing you. It started with light, not the kind that blinds you. Not some celestial ray cracking through the ceiling. Just a shift. The way a room changes color when a storm is about to roll in. Subtle, sourceless, but undeniable. The kind of change that doesn't alter what's around you, just how you feel inside it. That was yesterday. Today I saw the staircase. I don't remember falling asleep. I must have dozed off at the console, head on my arm, the mic still hot. I dream sometimes while I'm awake now. I think that's becoming common. I've had at least a dozen listeners report the same thing. Visions that don't feel like sleep, but come during stillness. Like something slipping between the cracks of attention. The staircase wasn't stone. Not wood. Not metal. I don't know what it was made of. Just that it felt real. Tall, spiraling, too wide and too narrow all at once. And on every step stood a figure, facing away from me. Thousands of them. Human-shaped, mostly. But wrong in scale, wrong in motion. Some shimmered like mirages. Others flickered like broken film. And all of them were climbing. Slowly, silently. Except me. I was standing still, at the base, watching. And then, one of them turned. I didn't see its face. I don't think it had one. But it looked at me. That I know. I felt it. Like the pressure change before a storm. And when it did, the staircase vibrated. Not with sound, with recognition. Then I woke up. My hands were already on the microphone. Not moving, just resting there. Like they were waiting for instruction. I thought it was a one-time thing. But now I'm not sure. Because when I played back the last 5 minutes of my recording, there were words I didn't remember saying. A sentence tucked between breaths, spoken in my voice, but not mine. It said, "We are almost aligned." And then silence. I played it back a dozen times now. It's me. The tone, the rhythm. But the words are too clean. Too deliberate. I don't talk like that, especially not when I'm half asleep at the board. And now I'm seeing symbols. Not outside. In my notes. In my handwriting. Little arcs and crosses and spirals appearing between my scribbles. Things I never remember writing, but they're mine. The pen pressure matches. The ink's fresh. I'm being used. Or prepared. That's the word that keeps rising in my mind. Like a whisper you can't quite place. I'm being prepared. Not possessed. Not invaded. Just shaped. Gradually. Gently. Like my thoughts are being taught a new language before I even know I've started learning it. And honestly, the most disturbing part? It feels right. It doesn't feel evil. It doesn't feel invasive. It feels familiar. Like I've been waiting for the ism, this shift, this awareness since before I knew how to want anything. I'm not the only one either. One listener, Milena, a nurse from Santa Fe, called today. She said she'd been dreaming of walking through rooms that don't exist in her house. Empty rooms. Rooms that remember her. She said the rooms told her story. About someone who speaks to everyone, everywhere. Someone who doesn't look the same to any two people, but who always leaves the same message. You were always part of the voice. That's what she said. That's what I'm starting to believe. So if I start saying things I can't explain, if I speak in ways that feel rehearsed, if the pauses between my words seem too deliberate, know that I'm still here. But I'm not the only one speaking anymore. And maybe I never was. This morning, I found a letter tucked into my equipment rack. I didn't put it there. No one else has been in the station. The doors are locked. The perimeter alarm never went off. And yet there it was, folded neatly. Heavy stock paper, handwritten in thick, looping script, slightly faded, like it had been pressed for decades in an old book. The date on the top corner read, September 3rd, 1891. The handwriting, it looked like mine. I don't mean similar. I mean mine. Down to the curve in the lowercase e, the way I crossed my T's too far to the right. The signature at the bottom, if I hadn't known better, I would have sworn I'd written it just yesterday, distracted, tired. But I didn't. The letter didn't say much. Just a short paragraph. They have always been here, and so have you. You are the echo, not the origin. When the sky folds and memory softens, remember, what comes through is once already yours. I sat with that for an hour, just staring at it, turning it over in my hands, checking for signs it was a prank, some forgery. But it felt real, aged, pressed, like something that had waited over a century just to arrive in this room at the right moment. And it wasn't the only one. A man from Kansas sent me scans of a diary he found in the walls of his farmhouse during renovations. It was dated 1917. The entries detail vivid dreams, bright figures appearing in the field, walking in slow loops, whispering names that made his skin feel too tight. One entry just said, "They told me they are returning," that they never left, that I would forget them until it was time to remember again. That phrase, Time to remember again. It keeps showing up. Old photographs, letters, stone carvings on abandoned churches that predate the foundation of the town they stand in, all saying the same thing over and over across centuries. You knew us once. Some of these relics describe things we're only seeing now, beings with no face, music that doesn't come from sound, people speaking in languages they've never learned. There's even a newspaper clipping from 1933 describing a mirrored sky over Montana. No explanation, just a note in the weather column. Locals report the sky reflecting the ground for 11 seconds. No atmospheric anomaly recorded. And here's the part one can't let go of. None of these accounts made it into any official record. Not in textbooks, not in archives. It's like they're being hidden, or worse, like they're being erased. Not by governments, not by conspiracies, by something else, something deeper, more automatic. Like reality has a self-correction function, and it scrubs these moments until the world forgets them. Until now, because something's changed. We're not forgetting anymore. We're recognizing. It's like a fog has lifted, and the echoes that were once scattered are suddenly ringing clear and close. Like we've lived this before, and now we're being brought back to the starting point, not to change anything, but to witness the same return. Maybe God hasn't returned. Maybe it's just resumed. So if you find something strange in the attic, a note that doesn't make sense, a voice carved into an old tape, a photo that looks exactly like you, but too far back in time, don't throw it away. Don't dismiss it, because the past isn't behind us anymore. It's stacked, layered, waiting, and it's waking up right beside us. And if I'm right, the version of you that wrote that letter back in 1891, they're listening too. I've been assembling something, quietly, off the record. I didn't plan to. It just happened. Over the last few weeks, I've saved snippets from the voicemails, the calls, the trances. Listeners repeating strange phrases. Whispers caught in dead air. Background noises that weren't part of the environment. A tone here, a syllable there. At first, that didn't mean anything. But after the signal shifted, after my own voice said something I never remembered saying, I started comparing them, lining them up by waveform, by cadence. And something emerged. A pattern. The fragments formed a voice. Not one I recognized. Not male. Not female. Not human, really, but familiar. Like something I might have heard once, a long time ago, in a dream I didn't know was a memory. I stitched it together. Took hours. Dozens of clips from dozens of sources, different countries, different time zones, different languages. But when played back to back, they don't clash. They fit seamlessly, like keys on a piano that were always meant to be played together. The result is less a sentence than a presence. And here's the strange part. When you listen to it, when you really let it play, without talking, without trying to interpret, everyone hears something different. I tested it with a few trusted contacts. Sent them a file. I didn't tell them what to expect. One heard her childhood nickname, spoken in the exact tone her grandfather used before he passed. Another said it whispered his full name, middle included, which he hasn't used since his wedding. A third heard a phrase in a language she never learned, but somehow understood. It meant, I'm still part of you. They all swore it wasn't eerie or scary. It just felt true. I played it for myself this morning, and it said my name. Not how I say it, not how anyone ever has, but how I felt it when I was a child, before I even knew how names worked. That inner shape you carry around before the world makes you spell it. It didn't stop there. It kept speaking, even in the silence between syllables. Even after I turned the audio off, I could feel the rhythm in the air. My skin prickled like it was listening too. The voice is not loud. It's not forceful, but it knows you. It doesn't guess. It doesn't reach. It remembers. And when it speaks, it bypasses thought completely. Goes right to the place inside you that never doubted. The core. The name underneath the name. So here's the question I keep turning over in my head. If everyone hears a different message, if the voice shapes itself to you perfectly, gently, completely, then who's really speaking? Is it a God that adapts? A being made of mirrors? Or is it something even older, something that exists only through recognition? A voice that only becomes real when enough people agree it's already there? Whatever it is, It's getting louder now. Not in volume, in clarity. People are hearing it even without the file. In their homes, their dreams, their thoughts. And every time they do, they come back a little different. Not broken, just adjusted, tuned, like a chord that finally found the right tension. So if you hear your name, whispered from nowhere, buried in the rustle of trees, spoken in the quiet space between thoughts, don't dismiss it. Don't panic. It's only calling to what's already yours. And whether or not you answer, it already knows who you are. Time is starting to slip. Not hours or days. Not calendarism. I'm not losing track of appointments or missing sunrises. I mean time itself, the texture of it, the logic, cause and effect. I'll drop a pencil and hear it hit the ground before I feel it leave my hand. The clocks on the wall freeze, then jump ahead. Not forward, not backward, just wrong. I used to blame fatigue, isolation, then the signal, then my own mind. But now it's happening outside the station. Everywhere, people are reporting in waves. I get messages with timestamps that haven't happened yet. Voicemails recorded at 3:12 a.m. arriving in my inbox at 2:58. One listener swore she watched her own reflection in a window move first. Said it reached for a cup before she even thought about it. A man from Georgia wrote that he left work, drove home, made dinner only to check his phone and see he'd never clocked out. Security footage confirmed he never left the building. But he remembers it. Every second, something is misaligning, or maybe realigning, and we're stuck in the middle of it. And then there's gravity. A teacher in Sweden said the pens on her students' desks rolled uphill. Not by much, just a few degrees, but they all moved the same way. At the same time, when she tried to record it, the phone screen blacked out and played a video of her own classroom in reverse, students staring at her, not blinking like they were waiting for something. Another report from Alaska described water flowing upward, not levitating, just disobeying, refusing the direction we thought was natural. The caller said it wasn't scary. He said it felt like the world was being corrected. That word again, corrected. It's been showing up more. In calls, in notes, even scratched into the dust of abandoned houses. Corrected, not destroyed, not collapsed. Like we were always slightly off, and now something bigger than us is tightening the screws. I don't think this is a punishment. I think this is a recalibration. As if the laws we live under, gravity, time, memory, were only temporary settings, placeholders until something older, more precise return to enforce the real rules. And if that's the case, it makes sense why people are disappearing. That's been the latest trend. Not deaths, not abductions, just vanishing. Quiet, clean, no struggle. They're there, and then they're not. Like a line in a story that was never supposed to be written, quietly edited out. One man left his car idling at a gas station. Pump in hand, door open, engine running, no trace. Another woman was in the middle of a video call with her sister, eyes open, breathing, mid-sentence, then froze. Blinked once, smiled, gone. Not erased, just resolved. I think the realignment isn't just fixing the world. It's deciding who fits in the world it's building. Those who match the pattern stay. Those who don't, well, I can't tell you what's on the other side of that decision. I can only tell you what's left behind. Stillness. Air that feels too balanced. Rooms that sound too clean. So if you start to feel things stutter, if your footsteps echo before you take them, or if you meet someone who seems to remember a conversation you haven't had yet, don't try to fix it. Don't fight it. Just pay attention. You might be standing in a space that's being rewritten, and the only question left is whether you'll be included in the final draft. I think this is it. I can feel the mountain humming beneath me. Not a tremor, nothing you'd see on a seismograph. This is something deeper, slower. Like the earth has remembered a song it used to sing, and now it's tuning up to join the rest of the choir. The sky outside the station isn't dark. It isn't anything, really. Just a pale, constant brightness, like it forgot how to hold color. The sun's up, I think, or something close enough, but the shadows aren't falling in the right places. They stretch toward the sky, and I've stopped seeing birds. I woke up this morning with no memory of sleeping. Just a moment of being here, mic in front of me, signal still strong. My hand on the switch. Like whatever carried me through the night decided to deposit me right back where I belong. The signal hasn't flickered once. I've gotten 3 calls since sunrise, all from people who don't remember dialing. Each one with the same tone, gentle, calm, resolved. The first caller said he was standing in a field, barefoot, as the air bent around him. He said he wasn't afraid, that it felt like returning to something ancient and warm. The second said she no longer remembered her family's faces, but she remembered their voices, and that was enough. The third, she didn't say anything, just breathed softly. And when she finally spoke, all she said was, "You are the last voice we will hear." I don't know what that means. I don't know if anyone else is still broadcasting, still awake, still untouched. But I do know this. I'm not alone in this room. Not in the way you're thinking. There's no one physically here, but I keep seeing things in the corners. Shapes, impressions, not reflections, not shadows, just traces, like something immense brushed against this reality, and its outline hasn't fully faded yet. I looked at my face in the bathroom mirror earlier. I recognized it, mostly, but behind my eyes was this shimmer, like someone else was watching through them. Not pushing, just observing, patiently. And now the audio feed is doing something strange. I can hear myself, yes, but behind my voice, there's another layer. It's not static. It's speech, whispered, perfectly matched to my cadence, saying the same words I am, a breath before I do. Like I'm being prompted, or like I'm already part of something that's finished speaking, and this is just the echo carrying through. I'm still me, but I'm not just me. I can't stop broadcasting. Not because I'm trapped, because I choose not to. There's still something sacred in this connection. A thread running from this mic to your ears. To anyone who might still be listening, even for a moment. And if you're out there, if you're hearing this, you're part of it too. The story, the return, the unfolding. We were never meant to understand it, only to witness. I see the horizon folding now. Like paper, like a page turning to reveal the next chapter. The sky is lowering. The wind has stopped, and the mountain has gone still. So I'm going to keep talking until the very end. And when I go quiet, it won't be because I ran out of things to say. It'll be because I've joined the silence. Thank you for listening. This has been